Minnesota. Thank you for joining us. And Major Lee, thank you for that incredible super chat. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate that, Major Lee. And our guest tonight, Aaron West, is joining us. Robert Two Crows, good to see you. We're talking Bigfoot all night long. Ozzy, oi, 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 good to see you. Gorgeous Renee and my lovely wrench, Princess Denali, is here. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And we're we're about 40 seconds away here. 40 seconds away. And Michael Lestuca is here. Give him a wave. He likes a good wave. John Janik, or are you Jan Yannick? Are you a soft J or heavy J's? Let me know, please. Welcome to our chat room. I hope you enjoy the show. We're about 25 seconds away. Great way to support this show is hit that subscribe button if you're brand new. Ring the bell. We're here every Monday through Friday night talking really weird and strange stuff. And, of course, Super Chat is open. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. You'll hear it all as we go on. Ed Clater, good to have you here, man. And I saw someone else here. Well, we're going to get this going here. Let's start a radio show instead of me yapping. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, at KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Aaron West has had several Bigfoot encounters and experiences in 3 states, including a sighting when he was just 8 years old. He also has advanced training in ancient Hebrew and is able to discuss the Sasquatch Nephilim theory philosophically and theology. And he is currently residing in Spokane, Washington. We got him from our good friend Nate Rudd out there and his son who's addicted to Hallmark Channel, Corey. And they are learning, and he has just joined his group. Aaron has just joined their group, Wibbs. And they are looking into the woods there, trying to figure out, is Sasquatch real and hiding in the mountains of eastern Washington state? Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Before I bring Aaron on, I got to say a big thank you to our rock and roll guru, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. You see, for everybody who knows that Corrence the booking guy is literally my right-hand man. And he's the guy who gets all of these great guests. He's the guy who lines up my schedule. And Corey has a very, very talented son named Ben. And we sent Mr. Bumblefoot a real nice package about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And he got the package. He got a bunch of shirts. He got some stickers, a poster, and we sent him a toque, a couple of toques, some beard oil, dirty filth. Sent him a couple of pictures that we sent down, and it looks awesome. It was amazing. Just a fantastic care package. Long story short, today on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, Bumblefoot put on his pages these 2 shirts that we made specifically for him. They're not going to be for sale for us, but we made him a character of him as a Sasquatch. So we called it Bumblesquatch. And then we made a character of him as an alien, called it Bumbalian. Yes, having a little fun. But these pictures were designed by Corrence the booking guy's son, Ben. And Ben did just an amazing job with that. And I got to tell you, Bumblefoot loved them. And for Ben, who's 15 years old, 16 years old, one of the two ages, and to put in that time and that effort and to have a major rock star around the world like Bumblefoot is, actually go on social media and brag all about these really cool T-shirts that are one-offs that are just made for him. It just really tickled my heart, man, because it shows the love this guy has, and it really shows everything that he is all about. And so Ben, good job making us look good here at Spaced Out Radio. You deserve all the credit. It's definitely not me. You just took the idea from my head and made it happen, because Lord knows I could barely draw a stick figure. I really can't. You know, it's always crooked in the middle, like it's got a bad spine. But nonetheless, I just want to pass that out. Aaron or Aaron, please clarify, which one are you?
I usually go by Aaron.
Oh, wow. Wow. He's got a nice beard, Aaron does, so you can tell he's pretty good at looking for Bigfoot here. But yes, Aaron West from Spokane, Washington. He's out there looking for Sasquatch. And another great recommendation for a guest from our good friend Nate Rudd out of Spokane, who runs Wibs with his son Corey when he can get Corey away from the Hallmark Channel. But explain to us, my friend, you had an experience at 8 years old. While everybody is worried about comic books, video games, playing baseball or football or hockey, hopefully it's not soccer because we don't condone that type of activity around here. But for you, having that experience at 8 years old, what was that? You got to go into detail for me.
Yeah. But first, let me say thank you for having me on, and thank you to Corey and Nate and Corey for hooking us up. So it definitely changed my outlook on things and gave me a phobia of windows that I'll get into. But it was quite a surreal experience for a kid. I estimate I was 8 because of kind of when my family moved. I know that it would have been second grade or possibly third grade. And what happened is we moved not far from our original house, but we moved into a house that was kind of, I don't know, a half a mile into the forest away from other houses up on a hill. And this house had been not lived in for several years before we got there. Used to be a farm on it, but the barn was all dilapidated and stuff by the time we lived there. There were no more cows, although we found some interesting bones that might have been from previous animals. And if you were to look at our house on a map, even today, the Cherokee National Forest, which is nearby, it just looks like a big blob with tentacles sticking off of it. And even today, there's one little tentacle of forest that runs right down to where my house is. But even back at that time, the forest would have been much broader than it is today. You know, looking at it on Google Earth doesn't give you the picture of just how much forest there used to be. You know, it's all been developed in the last 30 years. So we had moved in this house that had always been, or that had been empty for some time, and there were not any indications that I remember of Bigfoot being around until this one night. And it was really quite a brief moment, but I don't know, it might even be my earliest memory. I can remember certain aspects of it so distinctly, and other aspects that, just sort of been lost to time. So what happened is we had some stairs, and it's one of those split houses where the front has a door to the outside, and then the lower level has a back door, if that kind of makes sense, And so the stairs, even though we're going down to the basement, there was a giant picture, not even a window, but a door, a glass door with, a huge glass door right there at the bottom of these stairs. And I forget now why I was going downstairs. I don't remember if my bedroom had been moved or what at that point. But you go down and then you make a little turn. And for the last 2 steps, you make a 90-degree turn and you're walking right by this big glass window. And so where my memory really starts is taking those last couple of steps down those two steps by the window. By the way, my brother lives in this house to this day. Oh, wow. And I've never told him this experience because even though he knows I believe in Bigfoot and he does too, I just think that would be too weird for him. But so anyway, I've had a chance to go back.
He might know now. He might know now if he listens to this.
Yeah, I've thought of that. Eventually, it's going to come back around. Yeah, so I have had a chance to go back and rethink this since then. But I walked down these 2 steps, and I see to the right, standing with the head approximately where the bottom of the deck would be. And I've gone back and measured as an adult, and that was so it would be somewhere between 7 and 8 feet. I saw a large, dark, hairy figure, and of course at the time I don't think that I knew what Bigfoot was. I did learn that eventually as a kid, but I think that was later than 2nd grade, and I don't know what I thought it was, other than I was absolutely terrified, and I froze, and I only saw it for a brief moment. And the one detail that I still can see clearly in my mind, the rest is kind of hazy. I remember the general shape and everything, but I can still remember just this angry scowl. It was just frowning, and I wouldn't call it mind speak, but simply with its posture and the look on its face, just the sense of, I am so angry, and not I was angry, but it was angry. And I felt kind of embarrassed and ashamed and scared. And I didn't know what to make of it. And so I froze, and then I just immediately looked down. I had this sense like, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. And I don't know how long that I stood there, frozen. It probably wasn't very long. Remembering it probably felt like a long time, but when you're in that kind of a situation, maybe it was only a few moments. And just petrified. I don't think I really could move. It was a long time ago, but I have the sense that I was sort of stuck frozen for a moment. And then eventually either I got up the nerve or this thing backed off and left. And I felt unfrozen, and I just bolted up the stairs. And then I still remember that part too, and I remember hiding upstairs between 2 couches because it was the only place that I could find where there was nothing could see me from a window in the house. I didn't go to my parents' room. I probably would have thought, that I probably would have been nervous about them thinking I was, weird or something. So I just remember going up there and for a long time, just kind of sitting between those couches, absolutely scared. I don't think I was really thinking. I was just, nervous and intense. And that's kind of the end of the memory of that event.
I got to ask you, being 8 years old, you see a monster outside. How do you not run to your parents screaming after this stare down?
I don't really remember, other than I thought, 8, I got a 9-year-old now. And so I can compare that. 8 is not exactly 5, and that's already 3rd, 4th grade. And I don't remember what I was thinking, but probably I would have thought they won't believe me, because I had no category what do you even tell them? Would you say that you saw a guy? You didn't really see a guy. You say you saw Bigfoot. I don't think I had that vocabulary yet. So I think I was so in shock and confused, I just needed to be alone and process it. And like I said, it was so brief because I just saw it, and I looked down that I don't think I really knew. And that kind of gets into sort of how I dealt with it over time. Is even though it stuck with me, I kind of convinced myself that my mind must have been playing tricks with me, and a lot of people probably have that experience. As I got older, I thought, I must have seen a face in the window, or I was just scared, or I was just being a silly little kid. And so I'd say by the time that I was maybe in my teens, I remembered it. That's what's weird. I recalled the experience, but I still thought, that was just me being a weird kid, which is now that I know more about it, and so I'll get into later, I remembered it after I kind of got into Sasquatch as an adult, and it all came back, and then it made sense. But at the time, I mean, how was I supposed to know? I didn't know there were Bigfoot in that area. But it did leave a lasting impression.
Were you afraid to go outside afterwards?
Yeah, that's what I was right about to say. I was afraid not to go outside everywhere, but to go to my backyard in the night where I saw this thing. And then I was also afraid of windows. And in fact, I still had this into college. Not during the day, but at night. I hated windows that didn't have shades at night. And in fact, that door, I recall doing this all the time. Even when I would go back to visit home at nighttime, I would just run by it. I would look the other way and I would walk as fast as I could because it scared me looking in windows. And even as an adult, I still get quite nervous. But then because I never told my parents about this, they didn't think about it, but they gave me this chore that I was supposed to feed our dog. This was maybe 3 or 4 years later at that exact spot.
Oh, no,
yeah,
no.
Within 5 feet of where it was. And I hated it. But of course I was, by that time I'm a teenager and I'm tough. I'm not going to be like, well, when I was a kid, I saw a monster and I don't, so I just did it, but I dreaded it. And what I would do is I would open the can and kind of get it shaken. So it was already a little bit loose. And I would just open the door, run out there as fast as I could, shake, get everything out and just bolt back in the house and lock the door behind me.
Now, did you have a dog when that happened, or was the dog inside?
I believe that we still had our first dog, which was more of an inside dog at that point. So, no, I don't remember anything about the dog being involved. I do have one other thing that happened in that house involving my dog that I don't know was Bigfoot, but looking back, I suspect it could have been.
Well, you can share that because we like the woo around here.
Yeah. Sure. And the I don't know because I didn't see anything. But let me think, was there anything up to that? So yeah, for those couple years, I was afraid. I had this memory. I didn't know what to do with it. I do remember reading Bigfoot books, and checking them out at the library and stuff. But it never dawned on me that that's what I saw, because it was always Bigfoot's over in California and Washington, and I'm sure you've heard that before. Like, people just don't know they're there. But then I did get to where I was comfortable walking. I mean, we lived in the woods. I had to be somewhat comfortable in the woods. I just didn't like to be out at night. But sometimes as I was getting, 12, 13, and I didn't write it down. I don't remember when this happened, but it must have been before I had a car. So sometime around then I would, hang out at my friend's house, listen to music or whatever, and then walk home. And sometimes I'd stay after dark and I would have to walk home in the dark. And I never liked it, but it didn't terrify me. I was okay with it, except for one night that and this one, again, I remember it really clearly. And I don't remember that much stuff from when I was that age. So I was kind of going, and I was maybe a third halfway up the driveway. And it was pretty steep, by the way. We lived kind of on a ridge top and a very narrow ridge. So our driveway is steep on each side. And I remember it being pretty dark, and I was going up the hill, and I just sort of felt all of a sudden really terrified. And I had no idea why I might have felt terrified, and I think that this whole thing kind of gave me a lot of self-doubt, because I remembered having this vision. I thought, boy, I can imagine all sorts of weird stuff, so I was probably trying to play it off in my mind. But then all of a sudden I look up, and coming very fast down my driveway, I can see some eye shine, and it's making absolutely no noise at all. And so I'm wondering what on earth it might be. Well, don't get too excited. It was just my dog. But that was very strange, because my dog was a real barker. She would bark at everything. I mean, that was what she would just sit on the ridge and bark at any other dog, or any sound or anything she heard. My parents got her mostly just to be a guard dog. And so the behavior I'm about to describe, I don't remember her ever doing anything like this. So she sprinted down to me, did a couple circles around me, making absolutely no noise, and started sprinting back. And again, I just had this, and and I just had the sense, like, go, 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 because something didn't feel right. I never felt this kind of creepy, terrifying feeling before in the woods like that. It wasn't exactly the same as when I saw the thing, because, that was more like shock, and there was this dread, but there wasn't the mystery. It was just like, oh, something hates me, and, that was more certain. But I just got the sense I have to get home right now, and my dog is like here to save me. And so I ran the rest of the way up the driveway, and that's all I remember. I don't remember what I did when I went in or what, but looking back on it now, knowing what I know, I think it's quite possible that's what it was.
Now, being from all over, you've lived in Pennsylvania all the way to the West Coast here in Washington State. And as we go
Wisconsin,
I apologize.
Yeah, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Carolina, Georgia, and yeah.
You've been everywhere, man. You've been everywhere. You're like one of them moving trucks. But the fact that you had this experience and it really ingrained in your mind. We only got about 3.5 minutes here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. I want to know, as you had this experience growing up, how did it really affect you moving into the future and what you wanted to do? Obviously, just by what you're doing now, it's been a goal to try and figure out one of these godly mysteries that we call Sasquatch. Sure. But how did it forge your future?
I think that it actually made me a little bit insecure, because when I finally realized that I didn't imagine that, and that this was a real memory, I felt really empowered, and I kind of gained some confidence that I never had in life. So I think it made me doubt myself in my own mind, is one effect that it had. It didn't really set me, because I didn't think it was Bigfoot, it didn't set me on this search for Bigfoot. But then later, when I realized it was Bigfoot, then I became kind of obsessed, if that makes sense. So there was a sort of a gap of my college years where it didn't affect me at all, but then I got re-engaged, and all of a sudden, this happens with a lot of people. It's just kind of a very engrossing subject.
Mm-hmm. As a child, going back to then and going into your teenage years, did you think, or were you fearful of seeing this creature and it becoming almost like a haunting to you?
I don't think I was as time went on, because it never happened again. So I don't think that I convinced myself probably by the time I was 14, even though I still had the memory, you were just a crazy kid. I do remember occasionally I'd see a bush and I'd think for a moment, oh, is that a face? And I'd think, oh, no, it's just a bush. There you go again, you crazy kid. So, yeah, I wasn't afraid of this creature growing up.
Now, when you saw that one that was kind of sneering at you, and you said you felt fear, but now you don't. Yeah. What do you think changed in your thinking process of this?
I just convinced myself that I had imagined it, because there was nothing like that was in the world. So it was just kind of tricking yourself. But that's why I say I think I lost some self-confidence, because I really thought, but what kind of person imagines crazy stuff like that? I must not be able to trust my own mind.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. Look what I do, man. Look what I do.
Yeah.
All 5 nights a week, man, we are here, talking about this weird stuff. But for you, as you gain confidence, and at what age, as we got about 40 seconds here, at what age did you finally realize that what you saw was real?
Let's see, it was in grad school, so must have been around 26, 27.
Goodness.
Yeah, 27 years old. And my wife actually got into Bigfoot. She was reading the BFRO stuff.
Sorry.
And we read a story about something looking in a window, and boom, it just all came back.
That's
and
insane.
I sort of buried it, and there it was.
Wow. And you know what? Sometimes all it takes is that little trigger to set it all off and to bring it all back. Aaron, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We're in for a good show tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as we are talking Sasquatch, Bigfoot, all night long. Sasquatch researcher Aaron West from Spokane, Washington. When we come back, Let's find out what they are. Are they real? Are they magical? Supernatural? Are they Nephilim? Are they Gigantopithecus? Or are they just from our nightmares? We'll be back. Good solid start there, man. Good solid
Thanks.
start. That's good stuff. Good radio right there. Good radio.
Good, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the chance to tell it. So how long's the break?
We got 5 minutes, so if you got to go tinkle or do whatever you got to do, grab a glass of water.
Is the top of the hour also 5?
6 at the top.
Yeah, I'll wait for that.
Well, Nate Rudd has given us his thumbs up, so we're okay so far.
Hi, Nate. Thanks for suggesting this.
Yes. That's kind of funny. Big bad Nate. Hey, Cat Chaser, thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate your love and support. Wagon Breath, I don't know what you're on tonight, but thank you so much. You've blown me away. Thank you so much. You're way too kind to me. Way too kind via the super chat. Now, I know we have a lot of brand new people listening tonight, so I just like to kind of make the notion so you guys all know what's going on. We are a live radio show. We are not a podcast. So right now we are actually in commercial break for our radio stations that cover the show. And so that is why you kind of get the behind the scenes of what is going on, a little bit different than what you may be used to. So I just like to preface that. If you are new, thank you so much for taking the time to tune us in and kind of hang on out with us. Do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. We really could use those thumbs up if you feel that we deserve that. We would appreciate that. And you don't have a website, do you, Aaron?
No.
No. Should we just put everybody to Wibs?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Washington, Idaho, Bigfoot search.
Yeah, Washington, Idaho, Bigfoot search on Facebook. You can join that group. You can bug Corey about his addiction to Hallmark channels and how Nate has to literally drag him by the ear out the door in order to get him away from the Hallmark channel, to get out in the forest and do a little Sasquatch research. Kids these days, that's all I got to say. Kids these days.
So he's not a star on the Hallmark channel. He's actually watching it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely addicted. I actually got proof. From his little sister. I always thought I was joking about it until I got proof. And Corey's like, "You're talking about yourself, Dave." No. We got proof with the photo. Blame your sister, Callie. Yes. Good family. The Rudds.
Yeah.
Very good family.
Well, until I knew about the Hallmark thing. Yeah.
Well, Corey's searching for a journalist who went out and made the big time and now is coming home to Spokane, to fall in love at Christmas time again. So he's got, what's April?
Yeah.
He's got 8 months to prepare. 8 months to prepare. Nate's laughing. Hey, Jesse Elmer, welcome. How's your beard? Give us an update on your beard if you don't mind. We would appreciate that. Off-World Adam, good to see you. Gorgeous Larry is here. Make sure that you give him a hello. Larry, I hope you're doing well, by the way. Please give us an update on how you're keeping up, man. Larry, one of our listeners, he lost his mom just a couple of weeks ago. So we like to make sure that we're staying in touch and making sure that he's doing okay. So that's kind of what we do around here. This is like big family around here. When one of us is hurting, we all got to come together and bring it so that way we're supporting each other. Let's see here. Wagon Breath needs a snack. I'm going to recommend Taco Bell. I really am going to recommend Taco Bell. And let's see here. No, she's going for beef jerky. Gorgeous Heather, how's Vegas? Please say hello. And we'll let's see here. We've got about just over 1 minute. Just over 1 minute.
Does your Taco Bell have the quesalupa right now?
I don't know. I don't have a Taco Bell in my town. It's kind of a sore subject that you just hit on there, Aaron. Kind of a sore subject. Just saying, you just hurt my feelings. Let's see.
Because I've got one 2 minutes away, And I just ate there. It was real good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nate, where'd you find this guy? Pulling stuff like that right off the bat. All right, here we go, buddy. Hold on. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in, unless you live within a 5-minute drive of Taco Bell, because I'm just getting it in the chat room tonight by everybody's pigged out there. No, my town does not have one, so I'm very, very jealous. Very, very jealous, but I'm trying to lose weight. That's the answer I'm going to use. I'm trying to lose weight here, so I don't need no Taco Bell. I don't. Either way, we want to say that you can check out all of our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Talking Sasquatch here. Good friend of ours, Nate Rudd, recommended Aaron West come talk to us about Sasquatch. He's from Wibbs, Washington, Idaho. Bigfoot survey. Search, tacos, whatever. I'm rattled right now, okay? I'm a little rattled, bragging about your Taco Bell experiences when I don't have any in this town. My closest Taco Bell, by the way, is 2.5 hours away. And then you show me it on camera. All right. Let's move on here before I throw this guy off the air. And Aaron, thank you for joining us. Very polite of you to join us. And let's see here. Moving on. What is Bigfoot?
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. Do you want me to digress further? I have some opinions about what it's not.
Well, you know what? I think that might be one of the most genuine answers that we've had when I asked that question. You don't know. A lot of us don't know. What do you think it may be?
Oh, well, okay. I think there's probably more than one thing going on that gets lumped in with Bigfoot. And, I've only had so many personal experiences, but I listen to a ton of Bigfoot podcasts and read stuff online. And so mostly my opinion's drawn from that. But you hear two different things happening, and then sometimes you hear them both combined. Sometimes you only hear one or the other side. Sometimes you hear that it's an animal, maybe not animal, maybe a creature, and it seems like more man. It has a lot of humanish characteristics. Then it also has some animal-like characteristics, throwing temper tantrums and stuff. Sounds similar to an ape. Maybe throwing rocks and stuff could be either one. But people see it eat. People claim to have killed them. They seem to live in family groups. They're seen fishing. Stuff that definitely sounds like it's some sort of just flesh and blood animal. So it's hard. But then you've also got really strange paranormal things that don't sound like a regular physical creature. The things that stick out to me in this regard would be kind of the sense of dread that is so commonly, not always, but very frequently expressed, that people sense that. The ability to kind of communicate things, whether it's mind speak or simply to just sort of tell you, like, you get a sense, go away. It doesn't seem like most animals can do stuff like that. And then especially, though, their ability to evade cameras. Because I think it is a good question why we don't have more photos of them. And, you hear people tell stories about my camera broke, or I took the picture and the film didn't develop. And I was talking to a Border Patrol agent about this just a few weeks ago. And he said, look, you have no idea how many, on our side of the border here in Washington, I'll leave it there. You don't know how many cameras we have plastered all over the place, just all throughout the forest. And I mean, he was open to the idea of Bigfoot, but he said he couldn't imagine that if they were really out there and they're really just an animal, why has nobody ever seen them? And then you get stuff like glowing eyes and disappearing and other stories like that. And so you got something supernatural. So I guess maybe to tell you what I think it is, I'll tell you the big question in my mind. What is the overlap of these two phenomena? Are they totally separate? Is there a creature and then there's some sort of more paranormal type thing? Or do all of the physical creatures have all of these paranormal abilities? And is there just a paranormal thing that for some strange reason acts like a physical thing? I think probably the best description is not found in like using Western science, but the way that the First Nations people will say it's kind of a spiritual and a physical creature. I mean, that category is probably better than trying to put it into our categories. But, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to explain it to somebody, but it probably fits people's experience more than anything else.
The biggest complaint that many people who advocate that this creature does not exist will always say, look, we've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people every year going through the forest, going camping, hiking, fishing, hunting, ATVing, quadding, whatever it may be, gold panning, and they see nothing. They're not, they've come across bears, they've come across cougars, they've come across all sorts of wildlife, yet no Sasquatch. Nothing weird, no dogman, no fairies, no sprites, no gnomes, no gargoyles, no aliens from above. They don't experience anything. And for those people, it's hard to fathom that there's this 7 to 10 foot creature weighing up to maybe 1,000 pounds, we don't know, walking around North America and is literally scaring the daylights out of people because they're startled when they do see it. So, I mean, what do you think is going on? How do we get credibility in this field for those of us who have seen it, yet the majority out there just kind of waves their hand at it saying, that crap ain't real?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real challenge. How do you get credibility? I don't know that you can, because for some people, if they have never seen it, they just won't believe it. And not everybody is going to go out and see a Sasquatch. Not even spending the time to go do it, let alone if they go try, are they going to actually see one? To me, though, the piece of evidence that I almost find it disrespectful for people to deny is just how many eyewitnesses there are. I mean, I was just thinking about this in my head. There's probably over 10,000 witness reports you can find on the internet today in one form or another. If you add up all the BFRO and all the written stuff and all the podcasts that are out there and stuff like that, I think that number is probably realistic. Maybe you have a more accurate number, but
I don't think there is an accurate number there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever counted, but I was just thinking of all the different, just the podcasts I've listened to, and how many are in. Yeah. So anyway, if you take the time to listen to people's accounts, some of them could be fake, but it starts to be a conspiracy theory the other direction to say that all these people are making things up. And what do you say about them? I mean, it's not a sign of mental illness to imagine this stuff. It's a sign of kind of being a liar. And how many people would just make stuff up like that to get a little bit of attention from some people on the internet? And then a lot of these people, they don't really want to be known. They publish their stuff anonymously. You know, they're kind of hesitant to share because it's embarrassing to them. That strikes me as something that lends credibility to the fact they really believe they've seen it. So I think you have to start with the number of reports to a skeptic. But, you know, I have no desire to convince people it's real. To me, it's more people who have seen it banding together to help each other figure out what it is. That's the part that I get interested in, maybe because I would like to know.
I think we'd all like to know, Aaron. I really do believe that we'd all like to know kind of what this is. I mean, but there is a great debate, a great battle going on between groups like the BFRO, your own group WIBS, and other groups out there on social media on what this creature is. There's a big part of the Bigfoot population who believes that this is some sort of relic from Gigantopithecus, you know, that somehow survived the splitting of Pangea when we were all one continent on this planet, if you go through the scientific version of that. Or you have the people out there, like a lot of First Nations and American Indians, who believe that this creature does have some sort of supernatural ability, whether it's cloaking, whether it's shape-shifting, whether it's interdimensional, and that's a big reason why we haven't found a body on this. And the great debate between the science part of it all, where we don't know if we're dealing with a large ape or monkey, or if we're dealing with something that is just out of our realm. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, well, I think that you have to discount a lot of people if you say it's purely flesh and blood, you know, there's nothing paranormal that ever happens, and everyone who reports that is just inventing stories. You can say that, but I just feel that would be too disrespectful. Now, if you're not aware of all these stories, if you're not really into the subject, you don't really know. So I can understand, but it's hard for me. I mean, I don't care. I'm not really part of any debates online or anything, but I think it is kind of just disrespectful to immediately dismiss everybody with a paranormal point of view. Now, I guess I could say a little more specifically what I think it might be, but it partly comes from my, you know, I maybe didn't mention I'm a minister, so, you know, I'm a Christian and have a Christian worldview. And what the New Testament talks about with when you talk about the spiritual world and the bad side of that, although maybe there's something with a good side too, but I don't know how that would work. But that, you know, evil spirits can take on different forms. So I really noticed this over when I was living in China, that and again, I like to believe people. I don't like to assume that they're just inventing things. And so, and even though I'm a Christian, I enjoy learning about the other religions, and I find the spiritual stuff really interesting. So there's lots of reports of like monks, you know, communing with spirits and stuff like that and appearing to them. I talked to a lady who told me that her son would see this ghost, and the ghost looked like an ancient Chinese soldier type person who would be in the temples around there. And this fits kind of with what you read in the New Testament, specifically 1 Corinthians, that like demons or false spirit, you know what, again, I don't mean to use that pejoratively. That's how I look at them, but spirits can inhabit or possess or speak through real world things. And it seems like they kind of do that based on what people worship. So if you want to worship Zeus, you know, back in ancient Greek and Roman times, people would sleep in the temple sometimes to get a vision from the god that temple was. And I think they probably had experiences like that. But, you know, in my view, they're like some sort of evil spirit or speaking through them. So when I look at it through my worldview, it seems possible that maybe there is just some physical creature that is just a creature. But, you know, these were sort of considered divine things, or not, they weren't exactly gods, but they were sort of like spiritual things. Maybe sometimes they get possessed like humans get possessed, you know, or maybe sometimes they are used to speak and communicate with people who are out seeking them. That's one way that I think of it as being possible, that there could be just a physical creature that yet somehow has this connection to spirits. I don't claim to know that that's true, but that's just how I look at it with my background.
Okay, so if you were to look at this, could you draw the comparison between Sasquatch and the Nephilim?
Yeah, that's maybe the original topic that they were talking about. This I do have a bit of an opinion about. Now, maybe it's not so much about Sasquatch as about what the Nephilim are. So it seems like it's pretty... I've heard a lot of people say, most Sasquatch Chronicles, which is the first podcast I ever listened to and still do a lot, a lot of people say they think Sasquatch are the Nephilim. And because I've really studied Genesis, like I studied it at seminary, I studied it in secular graduate school, from a lot of different perspectives, I just don't think that what we read about the Nephilim really matches Sasquatch. There's basically two layers of why. So the first layer of why is that this idea that the Nephilim are the offspring of angels and humans mating is not ironclad. Like, there's three main interpretations. And should I maybe give a little background?
Yeah, please.
Everybody...
We got lots of time. We got eight minutes here.
So the Nephilim are just mentioned in these four enigmatic verses from Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. And you got to look at the context there, and it's trying to explain how did the world get so corrupt that God had to wipe the whole thing out and start again with Noah. That's pretty bad. And the Nephilim are part of this story. What it says is that it happened when the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful. And they took some of them as wives. And it's kind of important. There's several things to note about that, but the main question is, who are these sons of God? And who are these daughters of men? And the assumption behind the Nephilim being, and then later it mentions that the offspring of these unions are the Nephilim. And they were mighty warriors. And that's pretty much what it says. There's another passage later in the Bible that mentions the Nephilim, and it mentions them as being tall. And that's kind of all you've got in the Bible. So then you have the book of Enoch and stuff, but we can talk about that separately. The sons of God and the daughters of men could be angels and human beings, and that's the assumption behind the Nephilim is Sasquatch theory. It also could be the sons of God. The way that the rabbis interpreted this, they rejected that view of the mating of angels and humans. They thought the sons of God were like powerful rulers, and the daughters of men were just like average people. And it's describing kind of emperor-type figures who would take a big harem, and like take all the women for themselves. And you can kind of imagine how that would lead to societal decay and, fatherlessness and all sorts of things, and not enough women to marry all the men. And this is what causes the society to downfall. The other interpretation is the sons of God are like the godly people, and the daughters of men are the wicked people who didn't follow after God. And that kind of fits the context too, because chapter 4 was all about the line of Cain, and chapter 5 was all about the line of Seth, which ends up with Noah. So all three of these interpretations are possible. But even if you do assume that the sons of God and the daughters of men are angels and humans, where does it say that they're big hairy things living in the woods? They're specifically mentioned as being not outside of society, but within society. It says the Nephilim, when the sons of daughters went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, the men of renown, is the NIV translation. Hero of old it's not just referring to your strength, but it's like a military general type person. It's someone who's going around conquering and defeating other people. And, they're very famous. And if you compare that to a Sasquatch, you really have to imagine a whole lot of change to get from these heroes of old and men of renown to very tall, hairy, strong people who live in the woods and are, generally skittish of humans. That's the Genesis part. There's also the Book of Enoch, which we could mention.
But don't things evolve over time? So Nephilim, which may have been hairless back then, could have grown hair over time.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible, right? So it's not like that's an impossible thing. It's just that I think it's a more tenuous position than people realize. Because there's a tendency to, even for people who aren't Christian or Jewish, in our Western society, to find stuff in the Bible, like, for example, back in the 1820s, 30s, 40s, even before that, everybody thought that the Native Americans were or the First Nations were the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, right? Why? Well, because the Bible was like the foundational document that everybody knew and read and studied, and they wanted to relate their world to it. And so I think maybe that's what's happening with identifying the Nephilim. You've got an example of something that's possibly got a spiritual and an earthly component, and it's tall, but that's really the only, connection. So while, it's not so much I don't think Sasquatch is spiritual and earthly so much as the Nephilim, they sound like they're these ancient heroes. So, could it be, but, why would it be? Why would they have developed into hairy creatures in the forest? It sounds more like they were all killed off in the land of Canaan than they retreated, when you read the book of Numbers and the stuff that follows here.
Okay, so if we can rule out Nephilim as being what Sasquatch is, what do you think about the idea of Gigantopithecus, or a remnant of it?
Well, I don't know enough about, I'm not sure how much do we know about Gigantopithecus, because it seems like, again, this is not something that I know a lot about, but they've only found a few bones of it, right? To me, the whole fossil record is just so filled with holes and question marks, and they're always refining the typology that, sure, but specifically Gigantopithecus, that's kind of a construct that we have created more so than a reality. We put a whole narrative behind this, behind some of these ancient hominids that based on a bone or two, and they find a couple more bones somewhere else, and all of a sudden the whole narrative they tell could be told differently. But so is the question, have Bigfoot always existed? Is that kind of the question?
Kind of. It had to evolve around something.
Yeah. Right. So did it evolve around something human or something animalistic?
Could be something alien. We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even speak to alien stuff because who can? But yeah, it sort of depends what you think aliens are, and it gets into like 20 other cans of worms.
Well, and that's the debate. That's the big debate that we are having. Look, I know from my own personal experience, I always thought that it was flesh and blood.
Yeah.
I really did. And I remember I grew up in an area where there's a lot of First Nations who believe that there is something supernatural with this amazing creature that they call the wild men. And then I saw the pixelation 5 days after I had my own sighting.
Yeah.
And it was right beside a cherry tree. Only 2 of the 4 of us that were there could see it. And 30 seconds later, we got roared at from that almost exact same spot. This is on my friend's property, literally 30 yards, 40 yards from his house. So we're going to continue this conversation when we go into hour 2, because I think it's important. What is Bigfoot? There's a big, great debate here going on. Spaced Out Radio with Aaron West tonight. He is a Sasquatch researcher out of the beautiful state of Washington. He's from Spokane on the East Coast. Probably a Wazoo kind of guy. Cheers for Washington State football. Have to. Or Gonzaga. One of the two. One of the two.
Not a big sports guy.
Your beard says different. Aaron West, looking for Bigfoot in Washington State. We'll find out more when we come back on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, my friend, we got 6 minutes. I'll be right back, okay?
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Bumblefoot Thal.
Me too.
Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly to improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
All right, I'm back.
All right.
Rock and roll, man. Rock and roll. Hey, Joe Dirt, welcome to join us. Fapster, what's going on? Oh, hey, Clam, what's happening? All right, we've got about let's see here. We got about 1 minute, bro. 1.5 minutes. All right. About 45 seconds. Big thank you to Wagon Breath, let me scroll this down here. Cat Chaser, Brett Lewis, and Major Lee for hanging on out with us, doing what you got to do, supporting us through the Super Chat. We really do appreciate it. All of our new listeners, make sure you hit that thumbs up, thumbs down button, and we go from there. All right, let's have a good one here, guys, as we continue on here and make things happen here on the show. Hello, Ange from Australia. How are you? Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Second hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Feshenine. Feshenine is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight talking Bigfoot in Washington State. Joining us, Aaron West. He is part of the WIBS group, Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Search, and you can find them on Facebook. Aaron, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Dave.
Not a problem. We appreciate you being here as well, my friend. I got to ask you, in regards to the conversation that we were having right before the break with the talk of what is Bigfoot, what is it?
Yeah.
And you don't believe it's Nephilim. We're not sure what it actually is. A lot of First Nations legends believe that this is a wild man, maybe prehistoric First Nations people, indigenous people who just left their tribes and went wild. There's a lot of theories and speculation on this. And then, of course, it could be an animal. We don't know. There is the whole alien theory as well. Continuing on those lines regarding what this creature is, what are some of the characteristics that you have noticed in your research about it?
About what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let me just say I've really changed a lot, and I think a lot of people do. And, of course, I reserve the right to keep changing my opinion, right, as you get new data and new information. I think it's natural to start with this assumption, I guess, especially not being from a First Nations background or anything, not knowing that history, that it's just an animal, right? Because you can kind of understand that. It eats, it leaves footprints, it goes to the bathroom, it lives in family groups. It fishes, it makes noise, it travels. And, the other thing, there's so many sightings where, it's just crossing a road. Why is some supernatural creature going to cross a road? It doesn't make, you don't understand why that would happen. So when I first got into it, I guess that was my assumption. Oh, it just must be like a gorilla, that lives in North America. Obviously, it's not a gorilla, but it's some sort of offshoot of that. And here it is, and it's just undiscovered. And then there's all this forest. You look at Google Maps, you realize that the urban areas are the exception rather than the rule. And you can kind of justify that at first. But then the more stories you hear of the supernatural stuff, and then also I think for me, just thinking about it more and more, does it really make sense that there wouldn't be any evidence of it? Because, the gorilla, the local peoples knew it was there. It's just that the Western people, it took them a while to get a specimen and to believe that. So, yeah, the first nation saying, they clearly know. To me, it's hard to mix and match. It sort of depends, like, what's your worldview of how you can explain it. It's hard to, like, aliens are one thing, sort of spiritual creatures, coming from the great spirit or another thing, and the scientific taxonomy is another thing. Man, I don't know how to square those. So it's kind of like which one fits the bill. To me, trying to mix and match, that really makes my head spin. But I definitely think there's got to be something paranormal, at least in some of these occurrences.
Paranormal is a very broad word, and yet many Sasquatch researchers out there, and they refuse to even go down that road. In fact, if there's rumors that the BFRO, for instance, are literally editing their reports that they are getting if anything supernatural happens, whether it's a ghostly encounter that follows, whether it's bright lights or orbs, or whether it's UFOs and aliens. And I don't think that's fair. It's definitely not scientific. Science can be ruled out. The minute you are editing anything, science is ruled out. And I have a real issue with that regarding that, but that's for a different day, a different conversation. However, when you look at the paranormal side of thing, it opens up an entirely different world, because there are a lot of people, whether it's Steve Istall, whether it's David Paulides or others, who believe that there is something strange going on that we can't explain with this. So how do you draw a standpoint on your research regarding the fact that there is potentially paranormal activity going on with these?
Yeah, so, my research is really more social than it is scientific. In other words, it's not my goal to, when I go out there, I just don't think, I'm comfortable with the fact that there are things beyond what we can know, and I just assume this is in that category. So I don't try to come up with an explanation that I can, write it out, other than it's in that category. There's a lot of stuff in this world we don't understand. When I'm going out, I'm praying that nothing paranormal happens. And actually, I'm more and more hesitant to go out by myself, because, the more I think about it, the less it really makes sense that this is just some animal that I'm out there finding. And the more it makes sense, there's dimensions to this that I can't even understand. But then again, when you hear people, it doesn't sound like they usually, kill people, even if they do have this spiritual side. It seems like they'll warn you to go away if they don't want you there, before they'll just come in and slaughter you. So that gives me a little bit of comfort when I'm out there. But I guess really, for me, it's more so about kind of going out with other people and trying to have an experience and see if you get some wisdom from that, than per se trying to come up with an answer. And I'd rather just get sort of raw. I feel like there's not enough raw data to even draw conclusions. One of the things I would like to do in our area with our WIBS group is to get a lot more local encounters, and to try to start soliciting that from people who live in rural areas, because it's really hard to draw a conclusion. And there's something called a hermeneutical circle that you, like in literary terms, that basically the big picture determines how you interpret the little details. But little details determine what you draw as the big picture. You're sort of constantly refining the one on the other. And earlier I said, I don't want to dismiss anybody's experience or opinion. On the other hand, sometimes, you can't have sometimes two people's opinions and ideas or even experiences would seem to contradict. But you never know. So you can't assume everybody's right, but you can't really assume anybody's wrong because you weren't there. So part of the problem for me is you're always largely dependent on other people, and you know that they can't all be giving you exactly what happened, but you don't want to discount anybody. So, I assume that there's a lot to the First Nations accounts. They're the ones with the longest history with these things. Your original question was more about their view that these are sort of an ancient offshoot of humans.
Potentially.
Which, yeah. To me, I don't understand how. I mean, that would have to be a long way back, I guess, according to that.
Well, I mean, it's almost like the same thing as if you look at the skinwalkers. The skinwalkers are allegedly a shaman that's decided to go to the dark side.
Yeah. I sometimes wondered if maybe they are some sort of people that maybe made some deal with some spiritual force. And I wouldn't say more than that what it was, but maybe they just said, we want to live in the woods and be left alone. And they said, okay. Because, you do hear these stories about these skinwalkers that apparently they're people that can shapeshift. Could they be people who wanted to permanently shapeshift? I mean, I guess it's possible, but I don't know if would people want to do that,
I have no idea. Heather has
Yeah.
a question for you. Heather
Sure.
in Las Vegas. Why can't Bigfoot be both flesh and blood and supernatural at the same time? I mean, Jesus was both, she says.
Yeah. Well, they could be. I think it's quite possible they are. But the question is, to me, so are they all? In other words, when people see one walking across the road, or when people have them they kind of know generally where they live, and they go research them and they study them. This guy who has the Creek Devil podcast had some Sasquatch like that. Will Jevning, where he could approach them basically like an animal and study them. And a lot of these, there's more people who have this experience. If those ones have these supernatural powers, why don't they use them more often? Why is it that some of them, there seems to be a lot of this, I don't say woo or whatever. I don't know if that's...
Woo is fine. We accept woo around here.
I don't see anything wrong with that word. I did know a guy who found it very offensive, though.
Yeah, there's a couple out there.
Yeah, but I mean it with no offense, just for lack of a better term. So, yeah, they could be, but just because it could be doesn't mean it is, So, but how do you explain the fact that sometimes it's just like an animal, and other times it seems to have some, what do you say, supernatural powers? I mean, yeah,
well, I think
it can't be defined by science.
To give the creature credit, whatever it is, animals are great at camouflaging themselves.
Yeah.
Nature gave them the colors to be able to do that. I mean, here I was out in the forest yesterday, driving around with my buddy, and as we're kind of going through the forest, because we still got a lot of snow up here in the mountains, I always think when we're driving around the forest, how many animals have we passed that we haven't seen?
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's cougars or lynx or bobcats or rabbits or deer, moose, whatever it may be. How many animals have we passed that we have not even seen? So, I mean, the fact that Sasquatch has the ability to hide itself in the forest and, to use the cliche term, the reigning hide-and-seek champion, that makes sense to me. It makes complete sense to me on a logical level, because animals have perfected camouflage.
Mm-hmm.
They really have, and they don't move. They know how to keep still when there's noise around, just to make sure that the area is safe. However, when you get stories of people who have witnessed this creature just all of a sudden One second it's there, the next second it's not, or you see tracks in the snow or the mud that just absolutely end and there's no more tracks. I mean, I laugh at the BFRO type people who say, well, they just walk backwards in their track. Well, that would leave a double print. And a lot of these tracks that just end are not leaving double prints. There's when you bring in the paranormal aspect of it all, why is this being attracted towards Sasquatch? So this is where I think a big part of the conundrum is cloaking, whether it can cloak itself, pixelate itself, like many people believe it can.
Sure.
All right. So, I mean, this is the big conundrum that we continue to see the argument about. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think, my saying that I think it's supernatural, the problem is that I'm basing that completely on other people's experiences. So I can understand why people who haven't had that and who are more of a sort of scientific background and skeptical bent can have that kind of superstition. And I mean, this is why it's not that I'm non-committal. It's just that it's hard to know because you start thinking about it the other way and what you say makes sense. I mean, not only are animals good hiders, but they're so hard to get a picture of. So earlier when I was saying, why is it? Do they have this magical ability with cameras? Then again, if they're as fast as a cheetah and they're smarter than us, I was out hiking about a year ago and I almost ran into a mother moose. I was hurrying back to the parking lot because I was looking at my phone, following the blue dot. I was going to be late for an insurance guy appointment and running along a creek. And I look up and there's a moose right there. And I was so close to it. But by the time I finally got a picture, it's just a teeny, if we had this term, people would call it a blob moose, and I was right there. And another time I was at Glacier and my brother was there and we saw a grizzly bear. I had my phone and I thought I'd push record. And then a minute later, as it's disappearing in the forest, I realized all I did was put it on the video setting, never hit record. I mean, you can see why it's hard to take pictures of these things. And all the typical animal arguments they have, I mean, there is something to them. And, bones get eaten and destroyed. Maybe they bury their dead. I mean, you can find plausible reasons. And it's not based on my own experience that I would say there must be this supernatural element, but I'm trusting others. But, to throw something out and something else, though, you also have to trust others that there's not some sort of government conspiracy. A lot of people throw that out there. Well, I have no way of proving if that's true, right? So why are there no pictures? Is it because they have this supernatural ability to avoid cameras? Or maybe there actually are a bunch of pictures, but it turns out there's government people who come and take the pictures away. And in any instance, I'm forced to to base my conclusion, and I don't, in my own mind, I don't have to answer that question. But if I do, I have to decide which one of those I like to listen to. And that goes back to this hermeneutical circle. You interpret the details based on your overall picture, yet you make your overall picture based on the details. And so it's like, depending on which way you want to go, really. I mean, which explanation do you pick?
But that's the hard one. That's the hard one. I mean, nature has a very good way of cleaning up itself up. Whether it's bugs, whether it's scavengers, whether it's carnivores, it will always clean up. A funny example of that is a week ago where we go ATVing. We have to drive by this lake. And a week ago, there was all of these eagles, bald eagles and hawks and osprey and crows and ravens sitting on top of this lake. And there was this, I'm probably a quarter of a mile from this lake as it's below me as I'm driving by. But you could see the big blood stain on the lake, which means that there was either a moose or a deer that was killed by wolves or coyotes for food. And the scavengers were all there. Now, fast forward a week, we haven't had much snow. Mm-hmm. There's no blood on that lake. Nothing. You couldn't see the carcass. You couldn't see anything. It's all gone. Yeah. All gone because nature cleans up after itself. It's its greatest healer. And so I can understand that if there were a Sasquatch body out there, that the scavengers and the other animals would get to it first, along with the biodegrading of it. But that still doesn't mean that after all this time, look, people use the argument all the time. Well, when's the last time you saw the skeleton of a bear in the forest? I've seen 2. Other people have seen them as well.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't say that the evidence shouldn't be there. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It would make it rare, but it wouldn't make it never. But that's where I go back to, some people say they're covering it up. How do I know they're not doing that? You know? So the fact that I haven't seen the evidence doesn't mean it's not out there. But still, that's why I do tend to think, now there's got to be more going on. Because it does the more you think about it, the more it does seem like a stretch. Right. However, there's other things, too, that come into play. Because what about these even rarer cryptids? Like Dogman and, Gugway type Sasquatch. It gets even a little bit harder to think that those are just totally natural animals. They're so rare. They're so terrifying. And yet you think, well, if people are seeing those, and I can't just dismiss those because that's too weird for me, like if you're going to accept people telling Bigfoot stories, you got to accept that sort of stuff. But, if I think that those must just be some sort of spiritual entity or, some sort of evil, fear-inducing entity, that can manifest itself physically, then I got to ask, well, wait a minute. Am I just jumping through hoops trying to explain Sasquatch another way? Because I think it's really hard with Dogman to say it's just some physical animal.
Yeah, Dogman's a whole different creature. That's like a house cat on steroids. With that,
a house cat?
Well, because let's face it, house cats can be angry all the time. Dogman's like on steroids.
Sure.
And angry all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's a huge conversation right there. What are these creatures are? But, I mean, do you think it behooves the Sasquatch community, as we got about 2 minutes left here, to downplay the potentiality of this being some sort of supernatural being?
I don't think it behooves them to downplay it, but, it depends what kind of person you are and what you want to do, right? I mean, if you want to have an exclusive club and you want to look down on people and dismiss other people, I don't think that's cool. That's not the kind of person I like to be, but if they're really convinced they're right, it's their right to do it. To me, I think it should just be focused on gathering data, and we're really not at a stage where we can start filtering things out because it doesn't fit our preconceived framework or our framework based on, our limited experience. I think I can understand why people have that attitude, but it does strike me as, just unnecessarily divisive, right? I think the Bigfoot community, ultimately everybody wants to understand what it is. And if you're open-minded, you should be able to consider that. But, then again, people don't like to have their worldviews challenged. So it's very threatening. You don't want to have to rethink everything. So maybe it's easier to just dismiss something that you don't know how to explain.
Yes, but then we get into the whole debate of conducting opinion and hiding behind the word science.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I think so. You're saying, people who say they're being scientific, and so they have to dismiss anything that isn't purely physical.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, that's what I think a lot of people think of science today. Science should be like a method. It should be a process, really, and you're taking all observable data, and then you're coming up with hypotheses, and you're testing them. But today, a lot of people, when they hear science, they almost hear a body of dogma, almost like a religion. I mean, the way people talk about science is is eerily similar to when you study church history and you talk about orthodoxy and heterodoxy. It's kind of become almost a religious discourse.
Aaron West is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Sasquatch Talk resumes right after this. All right, we're clear.
All right.
Wonderful.
I can start thinking of stuff for the next section, or this is...
Oh, we'll just go with it.
Sure.
Lawrence Burchett, thank you for tuning us in, man. All the way from Iowa. Field of Dreams, man. One of my favorite movies. Number 2 movie next to Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Huh.
Actually, it's number 3. Slapshot would be number 2. But, yes. Yeah, I don't know where we're going with this, man. I never have a plan.
All right, that's good. As long as you're fine.
Never have a plan. It's kind of what I like about it, man.
Good. Yeah, I just wish I could be more definitive for you.
Oh, that's all right, dude.
Non-committal.
Oh, hey, I mean, that's being as honest and as truthful as possible. Right?
I did have an interest when I was in this documentary. We had some conflicts between sort of flesh and blood guys and a very woo guy. Do you know Bob Alley, Robert Alley?
No.
Okay. He's a researcher. He's written 2 books. He's over on the west side of Washington. And he argued with some of the other guys. He argued for being woo, more of that.
Look, I know there's a big population there in Washington State who believes that Sasquatch are people too and deserve the right to vote. Okay. I'm not really into that.
Yeah.
My big thing is this. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I know I've seen it. I know I've had some strange experiences with it. But when you are eliminating something because you don't believe in it, that tells me that your research is garbage.
Yeah.
It's garbage. And stop trying to justify it, because science, in the end, breaks down to proving or disproving theory. You haven't disproven the theory of the woo. All you've done is you've denied the theory of the woo. Therefore, you're not conducting anything scientific. And that is something that I find the biggest issue with any of these fields, whether it's ghost hunters, whether it's people who are hunting for UFOs and aliens, or whether it's Sasquatch, Dogman, or whatever. I don't know what this creature is. I know I had something supernatural happen with it. I know I've seen them, and it looked pretty real to me. But,
yeah.
Like whether it's the person in BC here who runs around saying, I'm looking for the North American monkey, or whether it's BFRO who isn't, is allegedly editing their posts, whether it's, people who say one thing but research another way. You got to keep it clean. And if you're not keeping it clean with the research, with healthy scientific data, that's the problem that we have in this field. Everybody wants to be a bloody scientist, right? And amateur science is good. It is needed. Just like amateur journalism is needed, blogging, vlogging, in that ilk. But you can't sit there, and I know it sounds like I'm lecturing right now, but you can't sit there and tell people, I don't believe that this thing can shapeshift because I don't believe in it. Yeah. And then in the next sentence, sit there and say, well, we are conducting scientific investigation of Sasquatch.
But to a lot of people, that's what scientific means, is the absence of supernatural and paranormal.
That's wrong, though.
I agree, but I think that's probably...
It's 100%. It's 100% wrong.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're conducting opinion.
Well, we can apply this to many other areas of life. Maybe don't want to on the show, but I mean, health. My wife's really into natural health, and there's a lot of things that are just a priori discarded.
Yeah. I know that.
Living in China really opened my eyes to that, because they're so skeptical of Western medicine, and you know what? Their life expectancy is longer than ours.
Well, that we could totally do. I'll tell you, my family doctor is from Sudan. By the way, thanks, Tim, for that amazing super chat. Really do appreciate the love and support, man. Thank you so much. And we'll have to get into this next half hour, but
sure.
We only got about 20 seconds. Big thank you to Wagon Breath, to Major Lee, to Cat Chaser, to Brett Lewis for the awesome super chats tonight. Really do appreciate the love, everyone. Here we go with the second half of the show starting right now. Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. I want to remind you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on talking Bigfoot from the West Coast here. Aaron West, he's part of WIBS, Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Search. You can find them on Facebook. And Aaron, we appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Aaron, with the experiences that you have had, since you are now grown, you're out there on your own time looking for this, what are you looking for when you're out in the forest?
Yeah, well, I'm still learning. I mean, let me make that clear. I'm trying to figure things out, and I've learned a lot from people who've helped me. When I first started going out, I was really just trying to keep up the courage to stay out there and not go home, because it's incredibly terrifying out there by yourself in the dark. And I quickly realized I needed some friends, also for my personal safety. What am I looking for? I think I'm of the school that thinks you don't really look for Bigfoot. You just serve as bait and let them come to you. And if they want to come to you, they will. So when I go out with other people, we have maybe looked for footprints and stuff, and I've tried to start doing that more. I will go on a hike and I will see, hey, is there some sort of stick structure that is conclusively not made by nature, that must have been put there. But really, I mean, it's not like you're going to go find a Bigfoot. So it's more, I try to find places where there have been many reports. And I got to give a thanks to a guy named Will Ulmer, Bigfoot of Stevens County, who has published a lot of that information in our area, and unfiltered reports, by the way. He doesn't edit what people say. And so when I moved here, it was only a few years ago, but because of his work, I had a huge advantage of kind of knowing where the Bigfoot hotspots were. So pretty much if I go by myself, which I'm doing less and less because I'm realizing how dumb that is, I just kind of want to go and draw them in. I didn't do wood knocks at first, but after going out with some other guys, they would do wood knocks and get responses. So I will maybe do one or two, but I won't do it a lot, and I won't do any kind of calls or anything. My thinking is I think they know if you're there. I mean, if they're there, they're going to know you're there. And they'll probably, if they're going to come check you out, they'll probably come sneak in your camp or something at 2 a.m, if they're interested in. I don't think that I can make them decide to do that. So I try to just act normal. And there's been a couple times when I think maybe they did come in at night. Here's a big mistake I made the first couple of years, though. I didn't have an audio recorder going. And so you get a story to tell people, but I guess going back to what is, science, even though I don't really look at myself as a researcher, if I am, I'm like at the very lowest rung of research. At least now I've got an audio recorder. Since I started using it, though, I haven't really had anything happen. And it kind of makes me wonder, do they know that there's a audio recorder? Maybe they don't like that kind of stuff. And maybe they're onto you and they know that you're trying to find stuff out about them and they don't like that. So mostly just go out and see if they come in.
What do you think causes Sasquatch's curiosity?
I think they're just curious creatures. And I guess whether you look at them as being more human or more ape, and to me, that's kind of whatever, they're somewhere in the middle. Humans are curious. Apes are curious. So if you just say they've got a primate side to them, even if they have a paranormal side, I think it would be too far to deny the physical side. And so they're just naturally, they're curious like some other animal. I mean, they're out there, and it's kind of weird to put yourself in their mindset because obviously we don't know what that is, but you can think if they're living out in the woods all the time, they know everything in the forest. We're something a little different and interesting. And I've heard people say, this is really beyond my experience telling me this, but it's probably more young ones that would come into camp. People sort of hypothesize the older one. People don't often see the huge, 12, 15 foot, I don't know, really, really big ones. It's more like 8, 9 foot. And maybe those are younger ones. And, younger animals in general would have more curiosity. And younger ones wouldn't have had as many opportunities to see them. After they've seen humans after a while and maybe learned our behaviors, perhaps they lose interest and are more focused on just living. So I think it's probably just natural to them. I don't know that it needs to be attributed to anything supernatural in that aspect, unless they're just, maybe they're not curious. Maybe they're just messing with us.
Do you think then that they are as curious about us when we're walking around the forest, hiking, geocaching, going for picnics, going for a swim in a hidden lake, than we are, just as curious as we are with them?
It sounds like some of them are, but probably not all of them, or we'd see them more often. Probably some of them, you would assume that they all have different personality types, and some of them are just more of that bent. And again, probably younger ones would, because you do get like the one looking in my window. Why was it looking in my window? Did it know I was going to be? I think it was just wondering, what's this? This house has been empty. I'm used to coming by. But there, maybe it wasn't just curiosity. Maybe there was also some like hate of, hey, dang it, now you're in my territory. I used to come here and be able to just eat the possums and everything, and now you're here, and now I can't do that so easy, and, I hate you. But sometimes it does seem like they're just checking you out. Perhaps they want to know how much of a threat you are, too. It may not all be, especially, do you have a gun?
Right.
Does it seem like you're there to, and, here's the real animal side. It seems like they get mad at people who are hunting and fishing, especially, which it really sounds like that must be because you're threatening their food source. And that sure does sound like that's a very physical thing.
Very true. Question from Kevin.
Yeah.
He is asking, what types of cryptids have you had experience with?
Yeah, so for me, only Sasquatch, unless you're going to talk about, I don't think we'd call it demonic stuff a cryptid. That's
no, but you can get into that. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's allowed here.
So I do listen to a lot of Dogman encounters, so I have heard probably 100 stories of that, but I wouldn't claim to know a ton about it. Yeah, I did have some of these, I don't know if you call them night terrors. And I know that many people have these, and I don't think that they're necessarily always some sort of demon. But in my case, I eventually came to believe that they were. I don't remember having them when I was a kid. It actually started when I went to this, the second college. I transferred as a sophomore and went to a new school that was a Christian college. And a couple times I would get this paralyzing dream, and it was always sort of similar, that it would be it would start out as like a kind of a pretty woman's face, but then it would all feel cold, and I would start to feel paralyzed, and like I couldn't move, and I couldn't even speak. And then I would, in that face, you just have this sort of cold terror. And as you look at it, it would slowly change into a demon sort of face. And then always the same thing. And, again, I'm Christian, being a minister and stuff. I would just say Jesus' name. And at first I couldn't say it. And I would be kind of like, and I couldn't move it. But after like several times, I could kind of mutter it a little bit. It would just slowly improve, and I could never really even say Jesus' name clearly, but then at some point I would just wake up and it would be gone. But I would wake up actually saying it out loud. So I wasn't just saying it in the dream, I was saying it. And, really physically. Well, that could just be a dream or a strange dream or something. But it was unlike any other dream I have ever had. This is like a distinct type of nighttime experience, nothing else like it. But the thing that solidified this was more than just a dream was, so this happened, I don't know, 4 or 5 times throughout college, and I kind of got used to it. But then after I got married, and I've told this before, I don't think my wife minds me sharing. If she ever does hear this and is upset, sorry. But when we went to China, we both had this same experience at the same time. And I had never told her about this because I didn't want to scare her, and I thought she doesn't need to know. She had never had this kind of experience before in her life, but one day we were there sleeping, and I think we were actually just taking naps. And we'd only been in this new town in China for, I think we were fairly recently arrived, and I have this experience, and I wake up, and then Kelly we're just laying there for a while, but then eventually, start to move, and she's really, really shaken. And, did you, or she didn't at first say, did you have that? She just said, what just happened to me? And she sort of told me about it. And then I said, actually, the same thing happened to me. And that's actually happened to me a couple other times. And I don't really have any clue what that is. I have talked to some people who are into this more than I am, because I don't really seek it out. I kind of worry that I don't know. I don't feel I know this is true, but I've heard that the more you get into it, the more you experience it. So I try to not intentionally pursue it. But some other people have told me possibly it's some sort of warning, like just trying to scare you, just saying, look, I'm here, trying to prevent something from happening, or maybe to get you to go away even. And what's interesting about that theory is that it started happening right after I went to a new place for school. And then it happened again when I went to a new place in China. So I've had that experience, but it's obviously quite different than a Bigfoot.
I hate to ask, and I know it's going to sound very naive here on my part, but with China being such a atheist type of regime and country, how is it possible to have a demonic experience in a land that doesn't believe?
Well, there's a lot of stuff to that. There's still a lot of, I guess, what you'd call folk religion. So even though most people are officially atheists, there's still a lot of traditions people go through. The particular city where we were, it was in Ningxia, which is a kind of the smallest autonomous region. It's not technically a province, but I don't know why that's so different. There was a big Tibetan-style Buddhist monastery in the area. I can't tell you why, but also from my view, just because it's atheist doesn't mean there's no no evil supernatural influence. I actually think atheism or communism per se, I mean, just look at all the people who've been killed in the name of it. I mean, you can have a atheist religion, in my opinion. Anything that convinces you that you can go kill people to bring about a better world is pretty evil in my book.
Unfortunately, that's all of history right
Yeah.
there. All of history. All right, let's move on here. Back to Sasquatch. You're now looking for this creature as part of WIBS, Washington, Idaho, Bigfoot Search. And you're learning about this more on the West Coast here, now living in Spokane, Washington. Describe for the people who don't know Spokane how mountainous that area is and how often the sightings are happening there.
Yeah, so it's right on the border of where the desert hits the, I guess you'd say, western edge of the Rocky Mountains. So there are mountains all along the north part of Washington State, but a lot of people don't realize there's this huge desert right in the middle of it that also stretches into Oregon. But the Rocky Mountains are starting here. Peaks typically are, Mount Spokane is over 5,000. We've got a lot of 5,000-foot peaks, and then up closer to the border of Canada, they get up to about 7,000 peaks. And if you look at it, the county that I like to go to is Pend Oreille County, and it's the very northeast corner of Washington. And it's pretty much one line through it where it's almost like Egypt, except for instead of desert, you have forest. So there's this one little line of the Pend Oreille River with some settlements along it. I think there's, 8,000 people in the whole county. And the rest is pretty much all forest land of one sort or another, federal, state, or logging. So there's all kinds of reports. I mostly have not got this for myself, but again, from this guy, Will Ulmer of Bigfoot of Stevens County, and people who have sent reports to the WIBS. But WIBS is still relatively new, so it's not got a huge database. But there are enough reports to know people see them in many different places there. I mean, I have the impression that they're kind of all over that region. Probably not everywhere at the same time, but you don't even have to get too far from the homes. It's a misconception that you have to be way, way out in the forest. People report seeing them right off the highway, and they report seeing them deep, deep in the forest and kind of everywhere in between.
Do you believe they are a migratory creature following the food line as winter approaches, and then when spring comes and the animals come back, they follow them back?
Yeah, and this is one question it's probably the question I'm the most interested in, is where do they go? Like, to me, that's much more interesting than what are they? I don't know what they are. I'll never know. But I feel like we can get a handle on where they're seen and when, because that's like hard data, and that's what I want to start pursuing. But learning more about both the traditional First Nations and how they were migratory, and also about how animals are, like comparison with bears or wolves. They all kind of they follow the game, and in particular, they follow not just the game, because like a bear, they're omnivores, but where is food accessible when? And if you just look at the natural cycle, that changes all throughout the year. So I would suspect that Sasquatch follows a similar pattern, probably on a much larger scale, because they can cover so much land. I've thought, how big of a scale do the ones here go all the way to the West Coast? I kind of doubt it, because I don't think they would need to do that. And again, looking more at the animal side of them, they're probably going to want to conserve their energy like anything else. So they're probably in the summer very high in elevation. Kind of from what I've gathered, a very tentative hypothesis is there must be some time of year when they travel further, maybe to find, mates for their young ones or something like that. I don't know if they would do that every year, but maybe that has to do with what some of the howling is. The long, long distances is trying to find other troops, and that's why you don't get that every time of year. But probably most of the time they're just following the game, going where they can get roots. When there's berries, they go to where the berries are. It sounds like they know when the fish are running, and so, they'll go down there. So I'd assume it's that kind of thing, just because that's what everything else out there does.
if they are migratory following a food source, this would mean that they're probably going mostly after deer or elk or something along those lines. You know, because they are usually following the weather patterns, staying away from the bigger creatures like the moose or the bear population, which the higher you go, that's why deer usually go higher in the winters or in the summers rather. A, so because it's cooler, but B, a lot of the bigger predatory animals get gassed out by the lack of oxygen.
Yeah. Well, but also, think of the First Nations. I mean, they followed the game, but they also followed when certain, plants are in bloom, when certain bulbs are better to eat. And, this I don't know a ton about, but also when stuff isn't covered in snow. Because here, I mean, and I'm sure there too, well, maybe not, because I don't know how close you are to the coast and how that affects things. But, I mean, right now, the top of the mountains here are covered in several feet of snow still, but down at the bottom, there's no snow at all. So, however, we're moving out of that phase into where you can kind of get to the mid-level too. So both for the game that's eating the food that's now uncovered, but also for the food, for the plants, tubers, whatever, for both those purposes, not just to eat deer. And I don't know as far as what they eat. I mean, I don't really have a hypothesis. People have seen them eating everything. Probably, though, if the animal side of them, if they're in a place with a lot of fish, they eat a lot of fish, and probably some places they eat more deer because there's more of that available. And obviously they're going to eat what's there, right? They can't eat what's not there.
Very true. Very true. We have about 3 minutes here to go before we go to break at the top of the hour. Aaron West is our guest. Aaron, what's your thoughts on gifting sites?
It sounds... the few times I've been around people who tried it, nothing happened. Just from listening to many other encounters, it sounds like be very careful doing that on your property. Because even if you're able to keep it up, when you move and someone else is there, they can get upset that you're not doing it anymore. And that relates to the whole, would an animal really do that? And is there something more to it? Do they see it more as an offering? Is it just they're in the habit of receiving the food? I don't know, but I've heard enough stories of people saying that they got angry when their food wasn't left. So it seems like something to try, though. I've heard of other people having success with it. It seems like if it's just a random spot out in the forest, you're less likely to get somebody hurt by doing that. If you're doing it at your house and 2 years later, there's some old lady there and they're banging on her walls and rapping on the windows and howling around because they are wondering where you are and why you have stopped bringing them stuff. I don't know. I'd feel a little bad about that. I'd try it I think I would try it if I located a place where I was very confident that they were. I probably would just to see what happened, but not on my own property.
Yeah, I think that's safe. I mean, you never want to feed wild animals in general. You know, like at my gifting sites, I don't have food.
Oh yeah, leave them like a mirror, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I got toys.
That makes more sense than food.
I got toys.
That's in fact what I was envisioning.
See, my problem is right now I can't get to mine because both of my gifting sites, the areas are still under 2-3 feet of snow.
Sure. Yeah.
So
you got the same problem.
I'm still a month away.
Sure. What's the elevation?
I'm at 3/4 of a mile above sea level.
Oh, okay.
Yes. The oxygen is nice here. I will say that.
Yeah. Well, good. That's where you're at, or that's where the site is?
Both.
Okay. Got it.
Both.
Yeah.
And like for us, I think a gifting site is a good way to establish some sort of communication. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We have one that's completely dead, and we haven't had action since the forest fires here. And
sure.
if that doesn't pick up this year, after before the snow falls and at the end of 2021, I'll pull it out.
Yeah. Well, another reason to not leave food, by the way, just thought of, because it's easier to rule out other animals. Because what other animal is going to take a mirror or, some of these other things people leave?
Exactly.
Anything could take food.
My friend, we have you for another 30 minutes here going into hour 3. Aaron West is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And when we come back, we're going to continue to find out what it's like to go tracking Sasquatch in the mountains of Washington State. We'll find out more with Aaron West coming up here on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, my friend, I'll be right back, okay?
Sounds good.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
All right, I'm back.
All right.
Sorry.
How are the dogs?
All right. And we have about 90 seconds here. 90 seconds.
So how far are you from fast food?
Oh, my town is just 10 minutes away, but we don't have a McDonald's, no Wendy's, no Taco Bell, none of the good stuff. No KFC. We're stuck with A&W, Tim Hortons, and Dairy Queen, and Subway.
Oh, well, those all have a sweeter side. It's probably for the best.
Yeah.
I know that fast food has not been kind of my waistline.
I know the feeling. I know the feeling. All right.
Yeah,
so
one thing go ahead.
When we get to the commercial break at the bottom of the hour, when I say goodnight to you, just stay on the phone until we go to break, or stay online until we go to break, and then I will say proper goodnight to you.
Okay, sure. I was going to say, one thing I'm looking forward to learning from listening to your show more is about aliens. I feel like there's a lot more to the picture to fill in. To answer what is Sasquatch, you kind of got to know about more than just Sasquatch.
It's my conversation right now with someone.
That's
why I'm a little distracted right now.
Sure.
Hold on, my friend. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Fessenine. Fessenine is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, from the Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Search, you can find their group on Facebook. We have Aaron West here. We're talking Bigfoot all night long, well, at least until the bottom of the hour here on the show. Aaron, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me.
You're very welcome. When we talk about searching for Bigfoot, a lot of people out there ask me, ask any researcher, how do you do it? What do you do?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm fortunate that I'm not the first person who's been interested in that in this area. So the first thing is to learn what other people have experienced, and we have this great resource with Will Ulmer's YouTube page detailing where they are. But as far as searching for them, there's really two related but different activities. Do you want to learn about them, or do you want to have a personal experience? And if you want to have a personal experience, you'll learn something. And so that's, you can go out, you can go to where they are, you can try to draw them in, like I said, as bait. You can knock on a wood and see if they respond. Of course, you never know if that's just some other guy out there doing the same thing, but it'll be exciting and fun. Or you can try to gather information by talking to other people and getting their experiences, which if you want to learn, I think that's probably there's more bang for your buck that way. That's something I'm just now beginning to start with this group that, I just joined recently and have kind of had some plans for that over the last year. So that's in theory, how that's going to work. But as far as going out and discovering things, I think for me, it's mostly been confirmation. Are they here? You know, and I mean, really, what else can you learn? You can learn, are they here? What noises do they make? And if you're lucky to see one, what do they look like? But you're probably not going to see it for very long. You know, you're not going to have a chance to sit down and interview it and ask it questions. So, you know, you're not going to learn all that much, even if you do get so fortunate as to have an experience. You know, maybe you'll have an experience and there will be some sort of, you know, supernatural element to that. And then you'll learn, okay, hey, they are. And you know that for yourself. Probably can't prove it to anybody else, but that's valuable to know. And so go places, use yourself as bait, and see what happens in the night.
Why put yourself in potentially harm's way like that?
I don't know, kind of for the interest. I mean, for me, it's probably first and foremost curiosity. And it probably goes back to this experience I had as a kid, kind of wanting to validate it, even though I remember it, even though I'm pretty sure it's real. You know, I was in second grade, maybe third grade at the most, and it would be nice to see one again and then to really know, yeah, I'm not imagining that. You know, it's real. And it's just such an intriguing thing because most things on this earth, you can just go look it up and read about it in the encyclopedia. This, you can't do that. You know, anybody's guess. You got so many different explanations out there, and a lot of people don't even think it's real. And so that kind of knowledge is rare, and it's much more interesting than other things that other people have already figured out.
When you're up in the forest, I mean, safety is always a big one. It is very large. It's very, you know, there's a lot of animals out there that can harm you.
Yeah.
They don't like you in their territory. You know, they don't even like you from a distance. They can smell you. They're pretty acute. And let's face it, most of us don't know what the heck we're doing out in the forest, myself included. But apparently, these creatures seem to be very knowing. They, you know, there's theories that it could smell gunpowder from about a mile away.
Yeah.
You know, that it has such acute senses. How do you battle on that? How do you work your investigation around that?
Well, the one time I went out with with a couple guys from Extreme Expeditions, the one night that I was pretty sure they came into camp there were only two of us there and neither of us had a gun. So take that for what you will. Something rubbed its hand across my tent. I can't prove it wasn't some guy, maybe a Border Patrol guy. But you know, but then the rest of the time it seemed like they were around, but they never came in. Who knows? But then how do you negotiate the fact that it's so dangerous out there? I have, when I'm somewhere really remote, I will sleep in my van. But then I realized, well, you can't hear anything. So if I'm by myself, I will go somewhere that's a little bit more of an established area. It's still dispersed camping, you know, in the national forest, but kind of a known spot, you know, usually right on the edge of the forest. But really my goal is to go with other people so that you feel a little bit safer. I didn't grow up in a gun family and really never had any interest in owning a firearm, but I have purchased a shotgun. And that happened after I was out remote camping at this one spot where probably the best spot I found around here that lady told me and others that she had these experiences over several summers there. But I was by myself, and in the middle of the night, some drunk kids pulled up and got out of their truck and were hooting and hollering and shouting, and we were like, hey, that guy's over there. And I realized, you know, if they decided to kill me, I'd be dead. You know, I didn't have a gun. And I also have bought a satellite communicator. So a Garmin InReach thing, so that I can send text messages and send an emergency signal. And I feel a whole lot safer going out there with both of those things, that I would have some sort of defense against an angry animal or a crazy person, and that if there were an emergency, even way out in the backcountry, I could get help.
Safety being the number one precaution. I mean, you do have to take care of yourself. You know, a lot of people think it's just about walking trails, you know, or driving along logging roads. Is it that easy doing it that way, or do you have to go get down and dirty, look for those deer trails that are way off the main trail?
Well, I think you could get lucky at a public campground, but that's less likely. I don't think you have to go 20 miles into the forest, but even though you could encounter one anywhere, I don't think hiking is the best way, actually. When I first started, I love hiking, and I thought, I will just go hike and see a Bigfoot, and this will be my hobby. But probably, even though they're not 100% nocturnal, probably they're largely, nocturnal. But even if they're not, they know how to evade me, some inexperienced guy out there hiking. So I don't think hiking is the best thing. I have not yet, I do not have the courage, or whatever metaphor you want to use, to go hike and camp in the middle of the forest by myself. That just seems a little bit too much. But I have heard of people who have great success doing that.
Okay. So when you're out there and you say, look, you don't need to go that far, what should people look for around their area to make them wonder whether or not it's a good place?
Yeah. Well, of course, the best indicator is, are there reports of Bigfoot sightings somewhere in that area? It doesn't have to be right there, but, within a several mile radius, or even a 10-mile radius suggests they could be in that area. You want lots of game, water. It does seem like in this area, a lot of the places where they're spotted are these kind of small to medium-sized mountain lakes that are a little bit off the beaten path, but it doesn't have to be way deep in the forest, but, a few miles outside of town. And that makes sense, right? There's water, there's fish, there's game going there. I mean, it would be a good natural place to have as a location. And it's easy to camp there. If your goal is to get evidence, and especially audio evidence, if you're by a creek, that really muffles a lot of sounds that you might hear. Now, a scream or a roar you would hear, but, something messing in your tent or whatever, you might not get a good sense of what that was, enough to tell if there were bipedal steps.
No, very true. But for the average person who doesn't understand what these these tree structures are, or markings on the ground, what should they be looking for?
Well, they want to look for something that couldn't just be a coincidence, which is hard, because if you're not, and that's me, I wasn't used to going out in the forest, and you see all these interesting shapes, but then you learn a lot of that is just from the snow. Like, the snow does crazy things, and if there was a fire will twist things all up. So you can't just look for a broken branch. I think if a branch looks like it's about 8 foot up, and it looks very clearly like a hand grabbed it and twisted it, and that's the only thing it could be, maybe that's a Bigfoot, or some sort of structure that's so complicated and intricate. But, I wouldn't go out mainly looking for that, because that's like a needle in a haystack.
So if someone is going out looking for Sasquatch, what should they bring with them?
For when they're camping, I would say an audio recorder. It's kind of a must, because you're going to hear something, and especially if you're new to it, which I'm still relatively new, you don't know what it is, and you don't know all the sounds of the forest. And you don't want to just go back to your buddies and say, I heard a noise, and it was, kind of like this. It could be anything. I mean, that experience, basically, it's your memory, but it's lost as far as data goes. But if you can get an actual sound, then you have something to share, something to analyze, something to compare, and learn what it was. Other than that, you need your safety stuff, probably plaster in case you do come across a footprint, although if you don't even know if they're in the area yet, it's not like you find footprints all the time, but that's probably something you should have, because, the one time you find one, you don't want to not have plaster. And of course, take pictures of anything that is at all interesting to you. And then, so a camera, doesn't have to be a real fancy camera. And then you can come back and analyze later, and when you're not in the excitement of the moment, and think, is that really something that must have been made by Bigfoot? I've taken some pictures of things, and I thought, man, that's a Bigfoot den. I came back later, I realized, no, it's not. Then I took pictures of something else, and it's like a kind of a little star type structure. Mm-hmm. And every time I see it, I think, how could that have happened? That would have fallen there, and every time I think, no, that had to have been woven, And it's just nice to have something to go back to.
One of the things and the theories that I heard was that, for a lot of us, we're using GoPros now.
Okay.
And we got GoPros. They're either on our hats, or they're, you get the chest strap where it's right in front. and yet a lot of creatures like Bigfoot and Dogman always seem to come out from behind. How important is it that if you're investing in a GoPro to have two GoPros, one looking forward, one looking behind?
Well, I'm not going to do it, but I would say that makes a lot of sense. The thing is, do they know what cameras are? Can they somehow sense them? Whether it's paranormal, whether it's something about the energy that they give off, that maybe by wearing a GoPro, you're going to scare them away. That being said, I have seen a couple good video clips that seem like people did catch them. It's just a brief running across the trail, and those were in the front. How often behind? It's hard to say, but you're probably going to see a lot of stuff if you do it behind. I don't know if you've tried that. It's a good idea.
I don't know. I don't even own one. I don't either. I do wish I had a dash cam. Not that I've ever seen a Bigfoot, but I've seen a lot of cool stuff on the road. And that's sort of the next thing I'm saving up for. I saw a golden eagle get attacked by a bald eagle. Nice.
It was on some prey on the side of the road, and I thought, how cool to have that on video, but I didn't have a camera.
A lot of the researchers that I've talked to, way more experienced than me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a researcher. Let me preface that. I'm a journalist and an experiencer. When I go out in the forest, I'm not usually even bringing a camera. I'm just there to experience whatever it is that needs to be done. But one of the things that I heard is a lot of the Sasquatch that are caught, crossing roads or by streams when people are around, they're usually the younger ones who haven't really figured out that humans are a dangerous species. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that? Or
it seems logical. Yeah. I mean, and also just based on the height that they are, it's not usually that tall of one. And we know that there are, things that are way over 10 feet, but that's not usually what people see. So that to me is the reason why I would agree with that.
You think there's a big population of them out there?
That's a great question. And one of the things I'd like to better understand with a survey. It's hard to tell until we get a handle on how much they move. It's hard to tell, when a guy sees one 30 miles away, is that a different population or is it the same? So that makes it hard to estimate. But I'm not going to put a number on it, but I think they're more frequent than your average person would think. I mean, I don't think they're hiding behind every tree, but in this county, I think there are not many places, up in Ponderay County, they're probably all over that county. I would assume there's a couple different groups in that county, on a couple, maybe 2 or 3 on each side of the river.
Race Fan wants to know if you have investigated any Bigfoot sightings in the Kelso Longview area.
No. Yeah. Not familiar with that.
I don't even know where Kelso is. I'm going to assume that's in Washington State somewhere.
Yeah. No, we're over on the east side. We're really like an extension of Idaho, more so than what you think of as typical Washington.
Right. Our listeners in Bellingham will be able to understand that a little bit more.
Sure.
Yes. All right. Well, let's move on, as we got about 6 minutes left with you tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Aaron West talking Sasquatch with us. What's your ultimate experience that you want?
My ultimate that I want to have? I ask myself that every time I go out because I'm so excited to go out, and by the time I get there, I think, what on earth am I doing here? I don't know what I want because I don't really want one to come scare the crap out of me. I'm not sure I even want to see one. I think I want to hear a noise that couldn't be anything other than a Sasquatch and be convinced that one was close by and escape in the nick of time. I think that's kind of what I want. Or to see one crossing the road. That would be great. I love driving at night, and I'll do that and just hope one will walk right by.
Do you fear this creature?
In a visceral sort of way. Not in a logically. I realize most of them, I don't think anyway, are vicious killers. I think most of them are just going to come check you out. It seems like if they want you to go, they will do something terrifying to get you to go, but stop short of killing you. So no, in my head, but when you're out there in the dark, it's another thing, especially if you're by yourself. When you're with a group of other guys and you're armed and you've got communication, then it's not as scary, but it's still, a little, you're on edge.
Okay, but you say you don't really want a close encounter.
Yeah.
You do want a sighting, though.
I would like a sight. It's like you can't pick your sighting, of course, and you can't even that you're going to have one. If I felt confident there was one outside my tent, I wouldn't peek my head out. I'm sure I would be afraid, because there's been times that I was very afraid. And no, but it would be nice to see one from a distance, see one from the car, or just be confident that there was one around.
Would you chase it down?
I don't think I would. It's hard to say what you would do. Especially not if I was alone, because I'd be a little worried it's trying to lure me away. Even though I don't suspect that's what they do. When you're out there, all of a sudden you just realize how crazy you are to be out there, and your attitude kind of changes. Maybe as I get more experience, I would.
Mm-hmm.
But the few times I think that they were around, my instinct was just to hightail it out of there.
Why? That's your job as a researcher.
I may be more of a hobbyist. The research, I think, comes from, you don't. What am I going to learn from following it? I'll see it walk off. I'd hope that I would have I'm just being honest about my own level of bravery. I'd like to think that I would just follow it and take pictures, but everybody thinks that, and everyone tells you when they see one, the last thing they're thinking about is taking a picture, right? So
very true.
I'm kind of extrapolating from that.
Okay, but you also said something a little ominous, that you said that it's potentially luring you.
Yeah. Well, there's native stories about that, of them luring you off into the forest, and there are people who go missing. So I don't doubt that some of these things can kill people. Got no evidence that happens in this particular area, but, better safe than sorry. I've got 4 kids. I don't want to leave them without a father. Just in case. So just like a bear. I wouldn't follow a bear. I'd love to see a bear, but I would not follow it. I would follow the park ranger's orders and keep a distance.
Yes, much like last year when we were side-by-siding, my buddy and I, and a bear cub, tiny one, runs right in front of us.
That's bad.
Hammer the brakes. And we're like looking around, and we're like, let's get the heck out of here. Mama is around, and she ain't going to be happy that we made noise and scared her baby. Sometimes you got to know when to get the heck out. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And, if I were with a group of 5 guys and we were armed, maybe we'd follow it a little bit, but yeah. Because for me, it's not like it's part of, it's not going to make my life, I'm not out there to prove Sasquatch. I'm just there to kind of have fun, have a reason to be in the woods, and to maybe prove it to myself, or confirm it to myself is a better word.
And have that 8-year-old reaction again.
Yeah. That's maybe another reason I think that's probably what I would do, right? I mean, that's what I did then.
We got 90 seconds left with you. Do we need a body?
To prove it to the world? Probably. To get mainstream science to accept it? We probably do. I wouldn't want to be the one to do that, but... And I don't know that we have to prove it to the scientific world. I think that's maybe overrated as a goal, but because and of course this goes back to, if you had a body and you took pictures and you put it out there, would somebody come along and snatch it and take those pictures, and no one would ever know about it anyway? And that's a lot of work to have that possible outcome. So I'm not interested in it, but if someone else wants to, I'm not going to say they're a horrible person.
Aaron, I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight, talking Bigfoot, and really do appreciate you taking the time. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it too. Appreciate you having me.
Not a problem. Aaron West, everyone, he is from WIBS, which is Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Search. You can find their group on Facebook if you want to join on up, learn about the Sasquatch. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire. We have the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Great job, buddy. Great job.
Well, thanks. Kind of to say, appreciate you having me on. That's fun.
No worries. No worries. We really enjoyed it too, man.
I thought there's no way we could go 2.5 hours, but sure enough.
I'm kind of a pro at that.
No, I knew.
And you didn't use the word squatch once. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate that word.
Squatch? Oh, no. I do too. It's so obnoxious.
Well, Big Bad Nate has given us a thumbs up. He has given us the great show, Dave. Nice job, Aaron. Thank you for listening there, Nate Foot. We appreciate it. Aaron, I'm going to let you go. I got to go get ready for the news here, but thank you so much, man. Really do appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll continue enjoying your show.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was fun. That was fun. Honest, appealing guy, man. Honest, appealing guy. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I apologize. I do apologize. I do. We don't squatch here. Any squatch comments are going to be removed from the chat room, Mr. Sovereign Farts. You know better than that. You're better than that. Yep. No, Kenny Loggins was not one of the lumberjacks with Travis Walton. Good boy there, Sovereign Farts. I was about to erase that one. Hi, Terrible Times. How you doing? Watch this. Boom. Just like, oh, Super Ben with a super chat. Look at that. Look at that. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. I don't know what kind of chat you got me into on Facebook today, but that's hilarious. Terrible times. What's it like to go back, go on vacation? What's that like? Fabsterino, what's going on, man? Duke, do you see how I get tortured by some of our listeners? Now, Sovereign, that's not a nice thing to say. Reverend Keith, let's give you an amen, my friend. How you doing? All of our music is provided by Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. And so that's where our music starts and stops. Right there. Sovereign, you pissed me off, and then you make a comment like that just makes me laugh. Thank you. Ooh, Fabster. Thank you. I appreciate the update with Grandma Rose. Dark D fans, how are you? Welcome to our chat room. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you coming on in and checking things out. Thank you. Vinny, you're the guy who still goes down the pharmacy aisle and asks for Brill cream. Chicken nuggets. That's hilarious. Thanks, Kev. All right. Thank you to Ben, Science Bob, Tim, Brett Lewis, Cat Chaser, Wagon Breath, and Major Lee. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you miss most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio and on Instagram @SpacedOutRadioShow. Speaking of the news, the news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the ufological. Writing in his autobiography, Sounds from Another Room, the former aide of Prince Philip, who just passed away, said he was given carte blanche to the prince's collection of stories about UFOs from the Royal Air Force. Philip also asked Sir Peter to bring in witnesses of alien encounters to Buckingham Palace for private discussions. It is believed Philip's interest in the subject was sparked by his uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, who wrote an official report about an unidentified craft landing at his Broadlands estate in Romsey, Hampshire. Philip also said to have spent summers like the one in 2019, reading The Halt Perspective, which explores the Rendlesham Forest incident, which has been dubbed Britain's Roswell. Now, in an interview, John Hanson, whose ex-father-in-law, Chief Petty Officer Edward West, known as Ted, was on the HMS Kelly with Lord Mountbatten, shared more on Philip's fascination with UFOs. He said, "I've got about 12 letters from the Duke's private secretary that say the prince found the subject interesting. Interesting. I'm quite proud of Prince Philip. Why shouldn't he have been interested in UFOs? Because for goodness sake, that is something that we should treat seriously rather than flippantly. It's the phenomena that has baffled mankind for millennia. Even Prince Charles is interested in it, and Prince William. Let's try and get them on the air. Can you imagine Prince Charles on this show? Hey, Chuck, what do you think about them aliens? Let me tell you something. Anyways, The Sun also reported Lord Mountbatten sparked Philip's interest in the subject, and he wrote about a silver spaceship reportedly landing on his Broadlands estate. The report was kept secret until after Lord Mountbatten's death in 1979. It told how bricklayer Fred Briggs spotted the craft hovering above the ground. A figure dressed in overalls and a helmet was then said to have emerged from the bottom of the vehicle before Briggs was knocked off his bike and pinned to the ground by an unseen force. Nick Pope, head of the Ministry of Defense's UFO project, said in 2016 Philip was absolutely fascinated with extraterrestrial activity. He told the outlet, "The royal interest in UFOs was extremely difficult for us at the MOD because our policy was to downplay the true extent of our interest and involvement in UFOs. We routinely told Parliament, the media, and the public that the subject was of very limited interest and no defense significance. The irony was that we were all crown servants, and that our ultimate bosses were fascinated by the subject we were actively trying to debunk." Prince Philip, he now has the answers. So, you know what? Let's just call it what it is. He was a UFO nut. Boston Dynamics, you know how they built all those robot dogs with no heads? Well, they got a dog that says something that is pretty cool here. Not going to lie. It's a terrifying harbinger of dystopian future when robots hunt and kill humans. In the other, it is the plaything of YouTubers who teach this robot quadruped to piss beer on command. You heard me right. It urinates beer, this robot dog. The latter example comes from the talented, imaginative, piss-focused YouTuber Michael Reeves, who managed to get his hands on a unit before using his tech expertise and dirty mind to turn Spot into the ultimate drinking buddy. With some quick code and a few feet of tubing, Spot can identify cups on the floor, position itself over them, and release a stream of beer, not urine, into the awaiting receptacle. It is the future Isaac Asimov could only dream of. As Reeves notes in his video, it's hardly a polished product. Pissbot is working flawlessly 35% of the time, but it's still absolutely amazing that we've done this. Now, just to put in the joy, costs about $75,000 to buy one of these dogs called Spot, but is plainly much more accessible than it was a year ago. That has the potential to not only create PR headaches for Boston Dynamics, but also genuine enforcement issues. How much visibility does the company have over its robots, and how are they being used? What happens if someone uses it the wrong way? This doesn't have to be malicious for people to get hurt. I, for one, cringed watching Reeves grapple with Spot, putting his hands on the inside of the machine's joints around the 12-minute mark. Yeah. Why? Because we want our dogs, our robot dogs, to urinate beer. It's always coming down to beer, isn't it? And aliens. We've all heard the stories of stolen groceries before, but stolen by birds? Not very typical, but it's happening. Customer Matt Llewellyn was packing his groceries into his car when ravens swooped in to steal a short rib from his cart. I literally took 10 steps away and turned around, and 2 ravens came down and instantly grabbed one out of the package, ripped it off, and flew away with it. That meat was 4 by 7 inches large, a sizable piece of meat for a sizable bird. Once he got home, he noticed the birds had poked at, but not taken the other rack of ribs. They know what they're doing. It's not their first time, Llewellyn said. They're very fat, so I think they've got a whole system here. It's a gang. It's a rib gang. When he got home, he said, I cut that meat out and started marinating it, and my wife said, that's gross, we should take it back. Costco actually took it back after even with it being marinated, gave him a full refund. This wasn't the only sighting of ravenous ravens. My parents were minding their business after a shop and made it home with one less steak, Kimberly Waller wrote on her Facebook page. The bird snatched it right out of the pack in the parking lot. Tamara Josie of Anchorage replied to Waller's comments, saying, calculating. Ravens are calculating. They hover above her in an attempt to steal her groceries, too. I had 2 ravens, one that was on the car next to me, and he kept squawking real loud, Josie said. He would sit on the car and stare at me, then hop next to the bed off the truck and onto the other side. He kept going back and forth. The other raven was on the ground. He kept trying to pull. I mean, those little mini melons you have in the mesh bags, well, he kept trying to grab through the netting and pull one of my melons off the cart. He said he was waiting for another opportunity to grab the melons off the cart, but they were never deterred, she said. They just stayed posted, waiting for their next opportunity to steal something out of my cart. They are very dedicated to their mission. I can honestly say ravens are brilliant. I watch them tease and terrorize my dogs. My dogs hate birds in the yard. So the minute that the ravens see my dogs outside? The ravens fly around and tease them. It's actually quite interesting to watch. Brilliant, brilliant bird. A medical board has suspended a surgeon who performed TikTok dance videos while flaunting the removal of fat and skin from her patients. The Regional Medical Board of the state of Sao Paulo, Brazil, temporarily suspended plastic surgeon Karen Garcia, her last name is Garcia, her license following the video she shared on social media. The surgeon was suspended on April 8th, and the suspension was announced on the website that belongs to the board, which is called Cream SP, 2 days later. Garcia's conduct is currently under investigation. She will not be able to attend patients in the meantime. If found guilty of misconduct, she may have her license revoked. In the videos, the surgeon, who is based in the Brazilian municipality of Ribeirão Preto, can be seen smiling and dancing along to lively music while flaunting the removed fat and skin of her patients. In one of the clips, she can be seen holding a plastic bag of human fat to the camera, which she captioned, "This is the breasts," before brandishing another liquid-filled bag saying, "This is the underarm fat." In another video, she can be seen holding up an ample cut of fat and skin and wrote alongside of it, "Today's trophy," followed by a number of zany faces emojis and a red love heart emoji. Garcia, by the way, has already been suspended by the Brazilian Society of Plastic Surgery for 6 months after the board found her videos unethical. Yeah, the SBCP found that Garcia had broken 5 of its internal regulations, including sharing images of body parts, even with the patient's authorization. SBCP President Estefano Luis Favaretto says that doctors were outraged when they saw Garcia's videos, and he encouraged them to take action. The surgeon boasts over 643,000 followers and some 11 million likes on TikTok, where she also posts videos of herself posing when working out. Well, you know what? I'd hate to see what Dr. Pimple Popper has to say about this, considering what she puts on YouTube. Yes, the sebaceous cysts are just the worst, aren't they? If you think working from home is hard, consider the spider who lives at work in a house it built. Arachnids use their intricate webs to trap meals, navigate across the structure, using the vibrations it senses through the hairs on its legs. Well, now a researcher team from MIT report that they have translated those vibrations into musical tones. What's more, they raise the prospect of someday communicating with spiders using their vibrational world as a medium for language. The team presented their research today during their spring meeting at the American Chemical Society. To figure out the sounds of a spider web, they hosted a spider in their lab and a laser scanned the web it constructed in 2-dimensional cross sections. Spiders live in this vibrational universe. They live in this world of vibrations and frequencies which we can now access, said paper co-author Marcus Buehler, a material scientist at MIT. One of the things we can do with this instrument, with this approach, is we can, for the first time, begin to feel a little bit like a spider or experience the world like the spider does. My question is this. Is this worth it? What does this actually do? What are we trying to prove? I mean, we got grizzly bears on treadmills, cougars on treadmills. We're wasting a lot of money here trying to get wild animals fat or skinny from fat. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Now, maybe it has something to do with science, but to me, not seeing it. A Russian influencer had her Lamborghini taken from her by police after she accumulated 199 unpaid traffic fines. Bad girl. Blogger Nastya Ililieva posted videos on Instagram to her 18.7 million followers, admitting in one clip that her luxury car had been taken from her because she had so many traffic fines. Life, the local newspaper, says that Ililieva from Moscow has accumulated 199 unpaid tickets. All from this year alone, people. This is a bad girl. The total sum of her fines has not been confirmed, but her Lamborghini Aventador was reportedly worth 20 million rubles, or $258,800. Ililieva, who is well known in Russia for being a television presenter, influencer, and blogger, quickly paid the fees and eventually managed to get her car back. In the video, Ililieva frowns to the camera and says, "It was the first time in my life that my car has been towed away. My Lambo. Now, I'm waiting for my turn to pay the fines and drive on." According to Life, the fines were issued for traffic violations, which included parking, speeding, crossing a double continuous line, and committing illegal U-turns. Another clip shows Ililieva peeling a sticker off the hood of her Lamborghini as she curses. Recently, a Lamborghini owner over in the UK revealed that he had actually decided to give up the car after finding it was way too expensive to own. Jack Swingler, who had been into cars from a young age, was in a position to purchase a Lamborghini Aventador S Roadster by the time he reached 24. Jay, who claims that he was easily influenced by the materialistic objects as a youngster because he didn't know the value of life, paid $375,000 for the car. On top of that, he was forking over $2,700 a month just to keep it insured, along with $415 a week in fuel. Well, it's expensive if you want to play with the big boys. A Florida woman was fatally shot in the head when her neighbor's gun discharged as he was cleaning it a short distance from her home. The shooting happened Sunday afternoon in Jacksonville. Police have not released the name of the woman who was dead at the scene. When officers arrived at the home, a neighbor told them the gun accidentally discharged as he was cleaning it. The neighbor was in his home some 40 to 50 yards from the woman's house when the shooting happened. At this early stage of our investigation, this appears to be a tragic accident with the most unfortunate of outcomes, Jacksonville Sheriff's Sergeant Edwin Cayenne says. He said the neighbor is cooperating with police. There was no word on whether he will face any charges. The woman's teenage daughter was also inside the home but was not injured. Investigators say she initially thought the gunshot was thunder, as storms were in the area at that time. She then called 911 to get help for her mom, but unfortunately, it was already too late. An Arkansas woman said her cat was stuck up a tree for 18 days before being successfully brought back to earth by a tree trimmer. Beverly McIntosh of Jonesboro said her cat Sparkles, not our listener Sparkles, the cat Sparkles, scaled the 60-foot tree, and in the ensuing days she had several friends try to unsuccessfully reach the cat using a ladder. Everyone came up and got on the ladder to get her, and she just would run farther and farther up the tree. McIntosh said she tried contacting multiple organizations, but was repeatedly told Sparkles would come down on her own if food was left at the base of the tree. Well, the cat didn't. No, stubborn as it was. She said weeks went by without Sparkles showing any signs of coming down, and then she learned of an organization called Angels for Animals. We got a call. Sparkles had been in trouble. In the tree for 2 weeks going on 3, Archangel said. Angie Herringer tried to bringing in someone with a utility truck, but they determined the ground was too soft around the tree to bring a vehicle in. A tree climber contacted the group, determined he was going to get it done and get that damn cat out of the tree. Well, it was too wet in order to do it that day. Herringer said she eventually was able to contact a tree trimmer who was in town for a job, and the man donned his gear, scaled up the tree. Herringer posted the videos on Facebook showing the moment the trimmer was able to capture Sparkles and bring her back down to solid ground. She was in there for 18 days. McIntosh said Sparkles is now recovering at home and will now be an indoor cat for the time being. I was really scared, McIntosh said. I thought she was dead. You know what the cat said? Shut up, get me some food, and pat my head. That's it. That's all that happened. And I'm sticking with that. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air, because, you know what, around here, we love the audience participation. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. What's your thoughts on Sasquatch being interdimensional or supernatural? Let's start off on Twitter, shall we? Haunted History says there could be something to this. Here's so many stories of effects and occurrences that seem to go on with seeing Bigfoot or right before a sighting. I'm open to this possibility. The Quest. Well, I do think anything is possible. I am of the belief it's most likely a flesh and blood earthly species. Anunnaki tracks. If space and time have no boundaries, then anything is possible. Captain Deadpool. I don't think I would go that far myself, but it is an interesting take. I'm more on the boat that it is the reigning hide-and-seek world champion. 13 ballads. Nephilim. Agent of God, that means the monster Grendel mentioned in the Old English poem Beowulf was really a Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And Dave Altman, little Davey Altman, he thinks Sasquatch is aliens. Always aliens. Never go wrong with aliens, let me tell you that. Daryl, definitely interdimensional. This is why pictures are always blurry. He is phase shifting when the picture is taking. Tyler, it solves all the problems. Paul, definitely not. It's a relic hominid or a wild animal. It has no otherworldly powers. Marty, yes, highly evolved spiritually, but non-technological. Reverend Keith, time to stop being Eurocentric and listen to the First Nations people. Jim, the best people to ask this question and find out a lot of information is the Indigenous. They will know more than anyone. That said, they are guardians of the forest. They are phantoms, being flesh or spirit at will. If they want to let you know they are there, they will leave signs like footprints. Otherwise, they will leave no trace. Jeremy, when we get physical, biological proof, I'll give you an answer. Paul, Janine says yes. Apparently, Paul didn't have an answer for himself, so he went with Janine's. Joseph says no. Doesn't explain why. Just a simple no. I need explanations, people. D.A. Roberts, I won't dismiss it, but I'm still learning towards its being a flesh and blood creature. North American ape. Adriano, very supernatural indeed. He's not a ghost. Eric with a K. We are Eric with a K's fourth favorite show. He says it's not rocket science. It's interdimensional. Nikki gets the final word. After personal experience, I believe Sasquatch are interdimensional and have vast paranormal abilities. Thank you to everybody participating in the Thought of the Day. We will do it all again tomorrow night. Thank you so much to Captain Shirk for getting our great news together for the SOR Newswire. She does such a great job. She deserves a good clap, Captain Shirk. And to Aaron West from Wibbs, Washington, Idaho, Bigfoot Search. Check it on out. Talking some Sasquatch tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone tuning in our chat rooms, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and to Derek and the Snarkettes hanging out at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, Wagon, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.